Okay, I'm going to quickly do the learning sponsors and then we'll start. Okay, a year of learning, friends of Malaskatsky, Moshe Zelig, Ben Mordechai, Martin Lippman family in memory of his wife. Malka Chana, Bat Pinchas, friends of Herb Jeremiah, Tzvi Ben Zev, friends of Sam Coleman, Shmuel Ben Yaakov, friends of Gideon Lazinski, Mordechai Shlomo Ben Meir, Bella and David Adler in memory of her father, Eliyahu Ben Yosef Cohen. Those who were inspired by our Rebbetzin Emeritus Sheila Shapiro, Sarah Esther Malka, Bad Mishlomi Yisachar, Gail and Leslie Kaplan in memory of their parents. Mushka Sprinzer Bad Yosef Chaim V'Chava, Hanan Ben Moshe Eliezer V'Chana, Pesha Bad Shmuel Yitzchak Halevi V'Tzipora, Isha Ben Yom Moshe HaKohen V'Chana, Rexford Friends of Gladys Sherman, Gutta Bad Meir, Michael Klein and Friends of Judah Klein, Yehuda Tzvi Ben Chaim, Marsha Bronner in memory of her husband, Harav Yerachmiel Ben Shmuel, friends and family of Arthur Ritholz, Mordechai Yudel Ben Baruch Leib Cohen. A month of learning by Charlie Gelfenstein in memory of his mother, Dacia Gilbad Meir Halevi, as well as in memory of his father, Meir Ben Yaakov, Ruvain and Susan Podolsky in memory of his mother, Fredel Bashraga Feivel, B. Pizer in memory of her sister, Rivka Bad Avram Michal Halevi. A week of learning by the Friends of Bernie Kurtz on the occasion of his second bar mitzvah, Rabbi Dr. Yankee and Malcolm Honig in memory of her father, Harav Simcha, his father, Harav Simcha Ben Yamin Ben Harav Yosef Yitzchak. Your father knew. That's Sidney Honig from YU. Okay. Rabbi Dr. Moshe Kranzler, his yortzeit today in memory of his father-in-law, Harav Aaron Ben Harav Avram Yitzchak. May Hashem is having a leah crank with your brother Shiv Hashem Matzliach. Open Israel, good to bench.
Okay. We are starting one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines. Yeah, 12 lines from the bottom. On Chav Zayin Amid Beis, 3 words from the end of the line. The Itmar. Yesterday, in the course of our discussion, we referred to the argument about Ovid Inish Din El Nafshe. So the person have a right to take the law into his own hands when he knows that he knows that he's correct. And that the property of his is in someone else's hands. He's allowed to go, for example, he's allowed to go take it, protect his property. He can hit the guy like yesterday. Said this is hit him. He can do what you have to do. So we have a machlokas about it. But we said, if you remember, as you see, there's parts where everyone agrees. The Itmar, we learned in the following. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, he said, pardon me, he said, Rabbi Yehuda said, Lo Ovid Inish Din Nafshe. A person is not allowed to take his law into his own hands. Nachman Amar Ovid Inish Din Nafshe. Nachman says a man can take the law into his own hands. Now, where the person is going to have a loss, like yesterday we said, for example, there's no way to calculate how much water the guy was taking out of the hole to recover it, or the water would have been gone forever. Where there's a loss, no one argues, okay, no one argues that a person does it. My Rebbe of blessed memory used to laugh at this expression. Why is that? Because you see that when we say, oh, kuli amalo pliga, the whole world doesn't argue. Who's the whole world? The two opinions, the two people who are qualified to speak. The whole world is the two qualified opinions. The Torah says, Achrei Rabim Lahatos. We learn, but it's not that we learn from the pasuk Achrei Rabim Lahatos that we follow the majority. So the Goyim came to the Jews on different occasions, and they Christians, and they said, listen, the majority of the world follows Christianity. He says, you should listen to us. Your Torah says follow the majority. So one, I think the Tumim answered them. He said that's only when there's a doubt. He says there's no doubt about this that you're wrong. He says we only follow majority when we're in doubt. We're not in doubt about this. For sure you're wrong. I think Rabbi Chanan Wasserman said this point. He said no. He said it's not majority. It's not anybody who speaks. They sometimes they call the janitor in. Everybody votes. You understand? Say it's not everybody has a voice. Nobody has a voice. It's the people. So Rabbi Chanan Wasserman said no. It's the majority of the opinions that are qualified to speak. Not everyone is qualified to speak. So therefore, we say what? So here we say Kuli Amalo Pligi. Who's Kuli Amalo Pligi? All of the opinions, we have 2 opinions. All of the opinions that are qualified to speak don't argue about this point. Interesting point. Key Pligi, where do they argue? Where there's no loss, the person really is not going to have any loss by waiting to go to court and recovering his money. Then Rabbi Yehuda says the person has no right to take the law into his own hands. They came in the lekapsida leza kamedayana. Since he has no loss, let him go in front of the judges. Rav Nachman Amar says no. Even where the person has no loss by waiting, he's allowed to take the law into his own hands. They came in the bedin of it. Since he's doing it justly, lo tarach, he doesn't have to take the trouble to go to Beis Din. Now, this is, of course, okay, well, not of course, but we should explain. This is where he has proof. If he needed to go to Beis Din, he would have proof that he's correct. It's not that every guy can walk into somebody's house and start taking, oh, this is mine, I know it's mine. There's anarchy, there's no law. Every guy walking to everybody else's house say, oh, I know this is mine, etc. It's when you have proof, you understand that you're right. Okay. Masi Rav Kahana asked the following question. But first, now the process is going to go like this. First, we're going to attack Rabbi Yehuda, and we're going to show that we're going to first try and prove that even when there's no loss, you're allowed to take the law into your own hands. Later, we'll try and prove the other way that even when there is a loss, you can't take the law into your own hands. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, Masi Rav Kahana asked the question to Rabbi Yehuda. How can you tell?
Lose for the person who wants to do it.
Right. No, would he have a loss by waiting? Is it like yesterday's case? Here, if he wait to go to Beis Din, the water, was the water be gone, it can't be recovered, or because he has no way of calculating the water that was stolen.
Talk about water yesterday?
Yeah, remember the water hole? That was the guy with the handle of the shovel.
I remember.
That was the case yesterday. Okay, that was the case yesterday. All right, because it was a long time ago. That's why. Masi Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana asked this kasha. We're assuming that what we're reading now is when there's no loss. Ben Bagbag told us. Oh, Ben Bagbag says, don't sneak into your friend's domain, to courtyard, sneakily, without permission, without him knowing. To collect what you know is yours. Shema Teirol Kaganov, you look like a thief. Ella, what? You're going in? Shvar Shina, break his teeth. Go in with strength. Ben Marlon say to him, Shali ani hotel. I'm taking what's belonging to me. And we understand that this means what? This is talking in all cases, even when he doesn't have a loss. He says, walk right in. Why would the guy think to go in sneakily? Because anyway, that doesn't matter. Here, go in. He said, we assume it means what? Even when he has no loss. Amar Leiser, Yehuda said, nah, he says imach. He says, now imach is a funny word. Imach really means, you really believe that? You really think you have a kasha? Or imach means, you know what? Leave it with you. That's a kasha? He says, that's shuva. They said, that kasha, keep it. Why don't you keep it with you? It's not a very good kasha. He says, why? He says, Ben Bagbag. When Ben Bagbag said this, he is an individual opinion. He's a unique. You're right. Somebody says it. Upliga Rabbanale, but the rabbis disagree. That is a minority opinion you're reading. It's Ben Bagbag. It's not the rabbis. You're right. There is such an opinion like that. That when there's no loss, that you may. But that's not the rabbi's opinion. I'm following the rabbis. That's one way. Rabbi Yana learns that no, there's no machlokas here because it doesn't say there's a machlokas. Rabbi Yana answers it more simply on behalf of Rabbi Yehuda. My shavar shina, when Ben Bagbag said break his teeth, just walk right in. Bedin, it meant what? No, don't sneak in. Do it publicly. Go to court, but then in the courtroom do it. Okay, the Gemara says 1 second. What kind of answer is that? You're telling me that brisa was speaking in the court? The language of the brisa doesn't look like they were speaking. The language of the brisa. Barbara, it's a tosefta actually, by the way, but not everybody differentiates, but it is a tosefta. So anyway, he says when it said break, the Gemara says it's very hard to believe that the brisa was talking about going to Beis Din. Why? If that's true, the Emorlo, why did Ben Bagbag say and say to him? But Omrimlo, it should be they say to him, the Beis Din, Mebayale. That's what they need to say. Shaliani no tell. Why did Ben Bagbag say, go in and say what I'm taking what belongs to me? Shalohu no tell Mebayale. If it's Beis Din, then they should have said what? The Beis Din is saying he's taking what's his. The Gemara says, Kasha, you know what? It's a Kasha. It's true you can answer it, but again, it's a mark against. Okay, good, but we can answer the first one. Toshma, again, we're going to attack Rabbi Yehuda. I want to try and show you that even when there's no loss, you are allowed to take the law into your own hands. One ox, that's a muad. It jumped up on top of another ox, the hargo, to kill it. So the guy in the lower ox, he wants to save his ox. What did he do? The shaman eshelo, he pulled his out from the top one. But the top one fell down and died. Oxen, they're heavy, these animals. I worked around them. They're gigantic, these things. They're frightening.
I don't think when the Gemara is talking about it, I think it would have to be a different breed.
Okay, yeah, that's all.
No
Yeah,
way,
yeah,
even on
who's
Sukkot,
going
they
anywhere?
have 13
Yeah.
of these things.
Yeah.
Where is half a ton?
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, all good points. In any case, what? So the guy pulled the bottom one out, and the top one fell down and died. Putter. They're big, so they fall down and they die. He's exempt. Now, 1 second, Rabbi Yehuda, my love, the muad isn't the case where the upper one was a muad, and had you gone to court, how much would it pay for your ox? Everything. So what were you okay? The lekab say that there's no loss. He wouldn't have lost anything by going to court. He could have let the top one kill his animal. He go to court, he get full damages. And therefore what? And you see that even though there's no loss by waiting to go to court, he was allowed to pull the bottom one out, let the top one die, and he's exempt. So you see a person can take the law into his own hands even when there's no loss. Somebody says law. Rabbi Yehuda answers, nah. Bitam, it's talking where the upper ox is a tom. And if he lets the upper ox kill his ox, he's going to get how much? Only half, okay? He could say thus, so he'll have a loss by waiting. Better if he saves his ox now, he'll save 100%, otherwise he's going to lose 50%. Gemara says, 1 second. If you're telling me that the ox is a tom, we would have lost half. The Brisa continues. How are you going to explain the continuation of the Brisa? It says, remember, here we said with this case was where he pulled his bottom one out. The Chafel Elyon, we learned in the Brisa, what if he pulled the top one off instead and it died? Chayev, now he has to pay. 1 second. The Batama, my Chayev. So what? If it's a tom, he would have lost half by waiting. What's wrong? So what if he pulled the top one off? Why should he pay? Same thing. He's still protecting himself against loss. So what's the difference if he killed it by pulling the bottom one out or killed the top one by pulling the top one off? The answer is what? No. He says no. You know why? Because he should have pulled the bottom one out below shmato. I'll tell you what that means. Because this is a rule. Even if you're gonna say you have a right to take the law into your own hands, you have to take the least damaging pathway. You're obligated to to take. You're right. You're allowed to take the law into your own hands. You don't have a right to just destroy the world. You take the law into your hands. What you got to do, you got to do. So since he had a better way to save his animal by pulling it out, and he took the lesser way by pulling the top off, he has to pay. But really, what he has to pay?
What he was really doing was saving
His animal. Yeah. The only thing is right, but he had. Right, yes. But he had no right to save his animal in the worst way when he could have saved it in a better way. But really the law is, so he says what? Here the what? So the answer, we defended ourselves. We just defended. It's a case where there was a law, and therefore everyone agrees that you can take the law into your own hands, but even there it's limited. So that says the Gemara furthermore. Again, we want to attack Rabbi Yehuda. Another one. Let's attack the position. I'm going to show you that even when there's no loss, you're allowed to take the law into your own hand.
Can you
Toshma.
take the law into your own hands if you're going to save somebody else's?
I don't remember at the moment. I'm going to take a look. Yeah.
You're allowed to kill them.
Yeah, I got to look. I'm off the page. I got to look. You have to be happy to look into it. Okay, good point. I'll say I'm going to make a mistake. Toshma, let me ask you a kasha. I'm going to show you again against Rabbi Yehuda that you can take the law into your own hands when even if there's no loss. We learned that a guy filled up his friend's courtyard. He put the whole courtyard full up of what of containers of wine and of oil. So now the guy can't budge. The owner of the courtyard can't move. What does he do? He's allowed to break his way out. Just heck with him. And he's allowed to break his way in. And this is where the kash is from. It's obvious that he's allowed to break his way out. He can't do his business. He's having a loss. But once he's broken a pathway out, why is he allowed to break a way back in again when he's already broken a way out? So you see that even when there's no loss, okay, he has a way out. He's still allowed. It's his court. He's allowed to break his way back in, even though he's already made a way out. You see what I'm saying? So you see that even when there's no loss, you're allowed to take the law into your own hands. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, he said to him, no. He said, you're making a mistake. That when you're going to see when he's coming back in, there is a loss. Why? Meshaber b'yotze lebeistin. He's breaking his way out to go to Beistin, which he has a loss if he doesn't go. Umeshaber b'nichnas lahavi zechu yosef. And after he's been to Beistin, and Beistin wants proof that it's his courtyard, he has to go back home and get the bill of sale that he bought, or whatever proof he has that he bought it. So now he has a loss. If he has a loss, if he's not going to find his way back in, okay, and therefore what? And therefore, both ways there's a loss. Yeah.
His friend filled up the whole courtyard.
Yes.
He came home.
Yes.
So he broke his way in.
That's where the kash is. Why does he need to break his way in? The answer is he has a loss if he doesn't break his way in because he has to find his deed for based in. Because he has a loss, he needs to prove his case in based in. He has a loss, so he can't get back in.
If he's inside.
He's inside, he can break his way out. If he's outside, he can break his way in to go get his papers. No, that's originally we thought he's breaking it out of the same place. That was the point. Yeah. Okay. There's more to explain here.
What if he didn't break his way out, but he has a thin Torah and he has
That
to go back?
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying over here. For the basin, I don't have to answer. It's the same. But basically, if he's in basin, he wants to get it to get his deed. He just breaks his way in. That's what we're talking about. Exactly. Toshma. Okay. Now again, I'm going to ask one more again on Rabbi Yehuda. I'm going to prove to you that you can take the law into your own hands when you have no loss. Okay. You know that a Jewish slave works for 6 years. Really supposed to leave after the 6th year. If he doesn't want to, he's happy. He likes. He's got a Canaanite wife. He's got all these things. He wants to stay. So they pierce his ear, and he stays till Yovel, till the Jubilee year. Once the Jubilee year comes, then it's over. It's goodbye, Charlie. He's leaving now. But sometimes the guy doesn't want to leave. Toshma, we learn. Minayin Lenirza. What about a guy who is supposed to be a 50-year slave? Shekol Yamav. His time is up. It's now the Jubilee year. He's supposed to go. But Rabbo Masarhe Bolatseis, and the owner is trying to urge him to leave. The guy doesn't want to leave. Okay, and he damaged him. Also, okay, and the owner injured the guy and made an injury. True Potter. How to know if the owner is exempt? Okay, Talmud Loma. Now this is an interesting point. Why is he exempt? Because they learn it by a special drush on a pasuk. There's a pasuk that tells me when a guy murdered somebody by accident and killed somebody by accident, he's in a city of refuge. He's in a city of refuge. So the halacha is that you might think, oh, listen, instead he has to stay there till the Kohen Gadol dies. But maybe, you know what? Let him pay guilt money. Let him pay kofar, and maybe you can go home early. So that we have a pasuk that tells me, no, you're not allowed to take any money. He has to stay anyway till the Kohen dies. Yeah, his Rebbe has to go. That's right. If he needs his Rebbe has to go. That's why. If you're a Rebbe, you better watch out who you're teaching. That's my Rebbe. You should know my Rebbe. I learned I was very privileged. I had a real Rebbe. I learned for 14 years by one guy. I held one man's hand for 14 years straight, before I went to my graduate Rebbe.
Do you know who you're teaching over here?
Yeah. So I want to tell you, and I remember this. He was a very serious. He took his students very seriously. And I remember, one rainy night, I remember, and he's sitting there, and he looks at us. Imagine, about 14 years, and he says to his students, he says, when I die, he says, if you're okay, he says, I'm going to be okay. He said, but if you're not okay, I'm not going to be okay. And I felt oh my goodness, what a responsibility I have. He said, if you're okay, I'm going to be okay. If you're not okay, I'm not going to be okay. Yeah, it was heavy. I will have to tell you about it. He was an amazing human being. Okay, so good. You're right. That's right. That you gotta watch out who you teach. It's a big deal. Okay.
But it doesn't happen today.
Well, yeah, right. That's not Lamaisa. So I'll tell you a story about that also, because I'm not late. I told it on Shabbos. So I'm not late yet. I told on Shabbos. We were learning in the yeshiva Makos. I told this story. So at that time, there were my Rebbe had sent the whole yeshiva away. The yeshiva was almost empty, But anyway, I finished learning Makos, and I said to my Rebbe, I'm done. What should I do? He said, learn it again. I said, okay. So I learned it over again. I came back. I said, what should I do now? I learned it again. He says, go teach it to 4 people. So I went and I taught it to 4 people. I came back and I said, I learned it again. I taught it to 4 people. I said, what should I do now? He said, now learn it with the Aruch LaNer. Aruch LaNer was a famous rabbi, Rabbi Yaakov Etlinger. He says, learn the Aruch LaNer. Aruch LaNer is a famous commentary. I said, okay. So I had never learned even the Aruch LaNer before in my life. So I was 20 years old. So I opened the Aruch LaNer, and in the introduction, the Aruch LaNer is writing on the tractate of Makos. He says, it's so important. He says, I want to write about Makos because many people won't learn Makos because it's not practical. Almost the whole Masechta of Makos, all kinds of things that are not applied today. But only the very end about shaving, is very most of Makos is not applicable today. So he said, a lot of people don't want to learn Makos, and it's a very bad thing. And I'm so happy I'm writing about Makos. You have to learn Makos. And so the truth is that I started laughing out loud because I just learned it again, taught it to 4 people, and not once did it occur to me that it's not even practically applied. Okay, anyway, that's what happened. I was so involved. Okay, so now how do we know? So we have so we have a special thing. We know that you cannot take kofar. The pasuk says, lo tikru kosher kofar lashu. Don't take guilt money to allow a guy to go back home early. He has to stay in the city of refuge. Lo tikru, but they make a special drasha, the other drasha. Lo tikru kofar lashav. Don't take money, okay, when a guy who's supposed to go back to be a slave. Okay, don't take anything from this guy. So we see that the master is that even though there's no loss, the guy what's the guy going to lose if the slave stays by him? What's he going to get free work? Or is he going to lose anything? He's not losing anything. So nevertheless, he's allowed to beat the guy, and he's not obligated for damaging him. They learn from the pasuk. So you see even when there's no loss, he has no loss by the guy's thing. He's still allowed to hit him and get him out of there and not have to pay.
Does the slave have to work and he has to feed him?
And I'm going to assume yes at that moment, because why should he? Why would he if not for why would he feed him? Why would he keep him otherwise if he's gonna? But anyway, but Lemai says still. The assumption is he's staying. What's he care? That's the assumption. However it works out. Somebody says I hachamayaskina. Somebody says don't worry. No, it's not a case where there's no loss. There's a loss. You know why? But abdaganba. This slave is a thief, and if he stays, he's going to be stealing from him. So you're making a mistake. Yes, you have a proof you can take the law into your hands, but it's what we all agreed on. There's a loss because the guy's a thief. Gemara says, 1 second. One second. All these years, maybe 50 years, theoretically, he wasn't a thief. Now he's stealing all of a sudden. He says, the boy says, no. He says, it must be he's not a thief. No, he says, no. It makes sense that it is a thief. You know why? This guy really is a guy who likes to steal, but he doesn't. You know why? Because he's a slave. So he has the master's fear upon him. Hashda, but now what? Now that he's really theoretically free, less they answer the rabbi. He's not afraid anymore. He just wants to stay. So therefore, he's really a thief, but it's a loss. Good. Now, Rav Nachman answers a different answer. Don't worry, I can still defend Rabbi Yehuda. Remember, the master is allowed to give the Jewish slave a Canaanite wife. Okay, a Canaanite slave wife. Up until now, this Jewish man was allowed to live with the Canaanite woman. But now that the Jubilee came, he's no longer a slave. He's forbidden us. She's forbidden. So the whole case of the master is not a case of taking the law into his own hands. He has another law. You're allowed to hit somebody to stop him from doing the wrong thing. I can smack him. I can stop the guy from doing an avera. The guy wants to do an avera with this woman. So he's beating up for a different reason. So it's not even a case of taking the law into your own hands. Toshma, okay, get ready now. Now we've done the first half. We've attacked the opinion that you can only take the law into your own hands if there's a loss, but you cannot if there's no loss. But we defended him. Now we're going to attack everybody. We shall not argue, but we're going to learn the simple way, like Rashi. We're attacking everybody. Now I'm going to show you that even when there is a loss, when everyone agrees that you're not allowed to take the law into your own hands, I'm going to show you. Even when everybody agrees, I'm going to show you both wrong. Everybody's wrong. Rav Nachman's wrong. Yehuda's wrong. Why? Toshma, come we learn, and now we get back to our Mishnah. Here we are. We're finally back to the Mishnah. He says, what we learned in our Mishnah. If a person left the pitcher, the pitcher in the public domain, and somebody came and tripped on it and broke it, potter. Okay, so the one who tripped is exempt from the damages that they did. What's the whole reason why he's exempt? Because he tripped on it. But if he broke it purposely, chayav, he's obligated, even though the other guy had no right to leave his thing there. But no right to thing there, and the guy even has a loss. He's not allowed to break it. You see, he's not allowed to take the law into his own hands. Okay, Amar Rav Zavi Bishmei Rava. Don't worry, he says. I can answer. You're making a mistake. It said if he tripped, he doesn't have to pay. Again, not to make the inference that if he broke it purposely, he would have to pay. No, the truth is that even if he broke it purposely, he would also not have to pay. Then why did it say specifically that he tripped? For the sake of continuity up to the end. Why? He says, the only reason why it wrote that he tripped is not because he has to trip. Even if he broke it purposely, it'd be fine because he has a loss. The answer is, I did the kaboy lemisnei seifa. But since the Mishnah needs to teach the end part, im huzak, if the guy was damaged, okay, when he broke the barrel, im huzak then the owner of the barrel, the owner of the container has to pay him. Okay, so when does the owner have to pay him? Dafka niskal, only when the guy tripped and got hurt. Aval shavar, but if he broke it purposely, even though he had a right to break it. This is the important point. Who does it? The owner to pay. Why? Because he hurt himself. Okay, and therefore what? And therefore, okay, erasure, this call. So therefore, since for the safe it had to be specifically for the end, it had to be specifically tripping. So it said tripping in the beginning, even though in the beginning it could have been tripping or breaking. And that's a very important point for economy. The Mishnah, remember, you have to memorize the Mishnahs. The Mishnahs were made to be memorized. With the author of the Mishnah is standing on his head to find simple ways, you understand, to have clear and simple and concise language, because you got to memorize the whole thing. It's a lot to remember. Okay, Toshma. Okay, again, we're going to attack both Rav Nachman and Rabbi Yehuda. I'm going to show you, even when there's a loss, you're not allowed to take the law into your own hand. We know that the one of the places we learn the law of embarrassment. Two guys are fighting, and a woman sees her husband's in trouble and she wants to save him. So in order to save her husband, she gets the other guy and she grabs him by the privates. No, she has to pay. She has to pay for the embarrassment that she caused the person. Okay, so let's take a look in that pasuk. Okay, where it says that she sent out her hand and she grabbed the privates, and it says the katzosa is kappa. The pasuk says the katzosa is kappa. You have to cut off her hand. So God forbid they don't cut off her hand. Mamon. It just means to say that we have to go through. Later we'll learn about. There's a whole drasha. We mean only what we don't. God forbid they don't cut off her hand. We make her pay the money. My love. But when does she have to pay for this embarrassment? Isn't where she had no other way to save her husband except by grabbing the other guy, and still what? She has to pay for embarrassment. So you see, what do? You see that you're not allowed to take your law into your own hands, even when you have a loss. I said, nah, you're wrong. The truth is, she had another way. The whole case is what that the Torah said she has to pay for embarrassment because she had what that really what where she had another way. But if she didn't have any other way, she'd be exempt for the damages. For the embarrassment. 1 second. When it says now, I want to explain this outside, then I'll explain it inside. Because I've done it with you before. This is very important in Mishnah. We have a principle called liflog v'lisne b'didah. Differentiate and teach it on its own. Split it, differentiate. What do I mean to say? If I see a Tana starts with a given case, let's say that's forbidden. And then it goes to an entirely different case, a different venue, to show a case where it's permitted. It must be that in the original case, there was no way for it to be permitted. Let me say again. If you show me one venue and you say it's forbidden, then you go to an entirely different venue to show me a case that's permitted, it must be that in the original venue, there's no way to say permitted. Why? Because otherwise the Tana wouldn't waste my time. They'd say, this case is forbidden, but but under these circumstances, it is permissible. If the Tana has to go to a whole new case, it must be, that's what the Tana is telling me. By definition, by going to a whole new case, it's telling me that in the original case, there's no opportunity. That's where so whenever you tell me that in the original case, it was also under certain circumstances, okay, we say to you, well, wait a second then. Liflog v'lisne b'didah. Why did the Tana have to go to a new venue? If there was really a case in the first venue that was permissible, it should have said, when did I say it's forbidden? Like this, but under these circumstances, it's permitted. From the fact that the Tana didn't differentiate the first case, must be you are wrong, and there's no such permission. So now I'm going to do it over here. You're telling me what? Oh, don't worry. You know why she has to pay? Because she had another way. But if there was no other way, she doesn't have to pay. I'm going to show you in the Brisa. The Brisa did not give me the option of the woman not having to pay. Watch, take a look. And therefore you're wrong. Let's take a look. Because when it found a way of not paying, it went to a different venue.
She grabs him by the privates. How much does she have to pay? What does it depend on?
Usually, remember we said usually is the embarrass. It depends on the status of the embarrasser and the embarrassee. It depends. Remember that's what I mentioned yesterday. Yesterday when we gave set prices, it's always maximums or minimums. Otherwise, it's always according to the people. Yeah.
Her husband was being attacked.
Yeah.
You don't think, you just react.
Yeah, it's true, but I told you, but it's true, but the Torah, yeah, the Torah places a lot of, until a person is an imbecile, I really mean is an incompetent, the Torah places a great responsibility on people. The Torah expects a lot from humans. The Torah expects a lot from human beings until a person is a shota.
Does it also depend on how many people saw this happen?
I don't remember it. That's all too far from the page. And I gotta look. Okay. So now, let's do the kash like now I'm going to show you how we say you can't be what you're saying. It can't be that the price of means that she has to pay only when she had no other way. Why? If that's true, Adatani Seifa, since the Brisa continued and it said what? But okay, there's an extra word there. She sent out her hand. What she sent her hand, prat l'shliach beistin, to the exclusion of what of the agent of the beistin. That when the agent of the beistin goes out, he doesn't have to pay, and he can do what he has to do, and he pays nothing. Lift log with listening, but break it up and teach it there. Why did the Brisa to show a case where you don't have to pay for embarrassment? Did it have to leave the case of the woman and go to the case of the agent of Basin? You should have broken up the woman case and taught the permission there. But you should have said, when is it true that the woman has to pay? When she could save the guy with another way, without grabbing the guy. But what she can't save him that way, Patura, she's exempt. So therefore, what? So therefore, I'm showing you by the structure of the Brisa, you're wrong. The Gemara says no. The Gemara says, you know what? You're right. That's really what it said. If you really understand the Brisa, this is a hard word, but he says, you understand the Brisa, that's really what it is. By Medraim, what it's really saying. It's really saying, when is it true that she has to pay? When she can save another way. When she can't do it another way. Okay, then her hand is just like the hand of the Basin, Upatura, she is exempt. Okay. Toshma, come again. I want to ask a kasha to both of you. I'm going to show you again that even when there's a loss, you're not allowed to take the law. We learned. In general, if once the tzibur has a pathway, it belongs to them. If the tzibur has a pathway in the middle of a guy's field, okay, and he really wants to move them someplace else. The guy took the pathway of the community, but and he gave them an alternative pathway from the side. He's not a thief. The halacha is masha nasan. What he gave is given, and he can't get it back. But the one he gave on the side belongs to the community. V'shalo, and the one that he thinks should be his, later it's going to change. The old one that he thinks should now become his, lo higio, he still doesn't get it. Either way, he loses. The Gemara says, 1 second. You just told me that the one he gave away went to the tzibur. So now, by all rights, he should have the old one should belong to him. If you tell me a person is allowed to take the law into his own hands, he has a loss, then code positive relationship. Sit there with a stick and keep people off the old public pathway. So you see that you're not allowed to take the law into your own hands, even when you have a loss. Rav Zabi made the Rabbi says, you know what? He says, you're right, but this is a rabbinic decree. You're right, but this is a rabbinic decree. The Rabbi said, no, they punished him. Why? We don't want people on their own, appropriating public property. Why? Because he's going to do it thinking he's honest. And one day he's going to give them a lousy pathway, a roundabout pathway, and he's going to take the middle. A similar one. But no, not that it's a decree that maybe the case where he loses completely is where he gave them a crooked pathway. Ravashi says another case. What? Coleman outside, he says, no, you know what? Anything that he gave from the side, by definition, is derech hakalton. It's a roundabout pathway. Why? It's by anything from the side. Once it's no longer in the middle, he used to go down the middle of his field. If he puts to the right or to the left, for someone, he made the route longer. Why? Krovel is there. Wherever you put it, it's going to be closer to one guy, okay, or Chokel is then to the other guy. In the old days, it used to be right in the middle. Wherever you move it, you're hurting somebody, and therefore he loses. You must have 1 second. Now the language here is difficult. I'm just going to cheat because that's how they do for various reasons. If that's true, we're going to change. Then why did he lose? Why did he lose the one that he gave up? Why did he lose the one from the side now? You're saying, okay, it's no good. So why does he have to lose the one that he gave them? Why did he lose it? Okay. Why did the tzibur get it? If he's not allowed to take the middle one, why are they getting the one that he gave them? The Gemara says, even though the language changed, it says, let him say to them, Shakula didchu, here, take back yours in the middle, but you leave mine on the side for me. The answer is Mishum de Rabbi Yehuda because of a special reason. Because of Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda said, we have a special decree or special rule that any pathway, once the community has taken it over legally, you're not allowed to ruin it. Once they get it, it's too late. Okay, Toshma, that's an enactment. Toshma, again, I'm going to try and ask the kasha to both. I'm going to show you, even when there's a loss, you're not allowed to take the law into your hands. You know that a person has to leave payah. You have to leave a corner of your field. So the balabayas, his crops, he designated, let's say, the right-hand corner for the poor people, but the poor people, for some reason, decided they want to collect from the left. They don't listen to him. They go to the left to take payah. So we learn Toshma, come be your proof. We learn balabash near payah. in a brisa. If he left peah mitzad echad on one side, u'ba'aniyim, the poor people have a right to take peah, but not the mitzad echad. They take it from the other side. Zeb is a peah. Both sides are peah. Now, it sounds like what? He lost out completely. What's going on? He has to let them take from there, and he lost from here. What's going on? If you tell me a person can take the law into his own hands, but he's going to have a loss, he's still going to have a loss. Didn't want to give double. What's going on? Amai zev is peah. So how come both of them are peah? Linkot pizza, let them take a stick, but they say sit there, and don't let them take from the other side. Why does he have to give up both? Hammurabi says you're right. It's not true. The way you read it is wrong. It doesn't mean that he loses everything. That's not what it means at all. Hammurabi, my zev is peah. What do we mean? Both of these are peah. Not that he has to let them take twice. It's not true. He does not have to let them take. He can stop them. He has a lot of stop them. But what does it mean that both are peah? The potrim and a meiser. An amazing thing. It's exeris hakasov. It's a decree of the Torah that peah, anything that is peah is exempt from meiser. It's a rule from the Torah. It's exeris, a decree. Okay, the Tanya, because we learned like this. Hamafkir es karmo. If a guy gave up he abandoned ownership of his vineyard. Then the next morning he got up and he decided to take it back. He abandoned it. Then next morning he goes up and harvests that same vineyard. Chayav, so he has to do the laws of Peret, the individual grapes that fall, he has to go to the poor. Ololos, the runty clusters. If a cluster is not thick on the top or doesn't drip from the bottom, it's like a skinny runty one, though goes to the poor. Shikha, anything that was left over that he forgot. Ubepeya and peya, all those things he has to pay. Even though what? Okay, why? Okay, and we learned that from an extra word of Tazo, an extra word abandoned it. So he's still chayv. He got it back. He's chayv and all those things. Upater ben a meiser, but from meiser, okay, he is still exempt. Okay, when he took it back from after, he's exempt. So the thing is also over here. Since what he first originally abandoned this side of the field, okay, and the aniyim went and took from the other side, okay. So now the side that he took back for himself, is telling me it's still payah, not in the sense that he has to give it to the poor people, like we thought before. No, it's still payah in the sense that even though he abandoned it and took it back, it's still exempt from what? From Meiser. That's all. So we knocked it off. Okay, good. So now the truth is, we defended everybody. We never did it. We never proved anybody wrong in these cases. Okay, says the Mishnah. Nishra. I want to. Okay, I better say it out. Nishra Kado, Rabin. Let's say a guy's pitcher broke in the public domain, and he didn't pick up the pieces or the water. He left the water and the shards of the pottery on the ground. Somebody slipped in the water, or alternatively, or the person was damaged by the shards. The owner of the pitcher has to pay him. We'll explain everything. Rabbi Yehuda Omer b'miskavein. Rabbi Yehuda says we'll come to tomorrow. Rabbi Yehuda says what? No, only when he has intention, which we'll see, to own the shards. Chayav, then he's obligated. But he doesn't have intention. Potter, he's potter. Let's see. We're going to concentrate in the beginning. With the beginning. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav. Lo shanu, when you told me that the owner of the pitcher is obligated, ella shetinfu kela, it's only where his clothing got dirty in the bamayim, his clothing got dirty in the water, that you have to pay for. But if the guy himself slipped in the water and hit himself on the ground, potter, the owner of the water is exempt. Why is that? Karka olam, he's active. The water didn't hurt him. It was the ground that hurt him. The ground belongs to the community. It doesn't belong to the owner of the water. And remember, we'll have to talk about it. He says, look, the owner didn't do it. Now, so it's very shocking, though. Why? Because what would you think this water is? I would have thought this water was what? Was a bar, an obstacle. I mean, we've learned before, we have an obstacle is not obligated on what? On utensils, okay? We're not obligated not on utensils. So it's very strange. How come he's obligated for the guy's clothing? Okay, so we're going to have to see. So Yehuda said, when I told over what Rav said in front of Shmuel, his colleague, O'Malley, he says, well, Mikadi, let's analyze this. What are you talking about? Any one of a guy's possessions, his stone, his knife, his pack, they are all learned, they're all derived, their law, when you put them in the public domain, they're derived from the law of a bar, of a pit. V'kulan, all of them, they have the rule, but it says by a pit in the Torah, shor or chamor, a shor or chamor, an ox or a donkey. And we learn, shor of the law of them, ox, and not a man. If a man dies in a pit, you don't pay for it, only if an ox dies in a pit. Chamor, and a donkey below kalim. And even when it comes to damages, it's only a donkey and not what? And not utensils. So damages you pay for a man or an animal, but not for utensils. And death you only pay for an animal. And the truth is, you're going to see in a second, why don't we pay for utensils? Because utensils is like the death of a man. The death, you don't pay for the death of a man, you don't pay for the death of utensils. Because when you break a utensil, it's like it's death. The hani mili lenient katola. Okay, we say what? When do we say what? Okay, that you don't have to pay when a man falls into a pit. It's only if he dies. When murder, avalinian is zakim. But if the man gets damaged, adam the chayav, the man is obligated. The kalim, but utensils, like I said, you put an example. Why? Because the breaking of a keli is like the death of a man. A broken keli is a dead keli. Okay. All right. So Shmuel says, I'm shocked. How can you tell me that Rav says that the owner of the water has to pay for the dirtying of the clothing? That's a pit, and the pit doesn't pay for utensils. Why is it? Okay, but Rav, what does Rav say? Nah, he says not. He says, Hani Mile, okay, he says, and this is a famous argument we mentioned before. When is it that a person's possession is like a pit? He holds all pits only when you abandon them. The pit and the ground, everything has to belong to not belong to you. But if it's yours, it's not a pit. Where he did not abandon them. In this case, he's a mamonahu, it's his money, and it's the same as an ox. It's his money doing the damage. There's no exemption for his money, for his ox, damaging somebody. A pit is what he doesn't own. When he owns something, he has to pay even for the utensil. He says, for me, this water is the equivalent of an ox, and he has to pay for the clothing that was dirty. Okay? Masi Raboshia. So one second. Let me ask you a kasha. He says, it doesn't make sense according to anybody. He says, nothing makes sense. Why? He says, V'nafal shama shor or chamor. Okay, the Brisa taught us what? If an animal falls there, an ox or donkey. Shoro lo adam, an ox and not a man. Chamor v'lo kelim, a donkey and not utensils. Mikan amru, from here they said, nafal l'tocho shor b'kelim. So now the Brisa teaches, but from here you learn, if an ox and its utensils fall, v'nishtabru, and the ones that are breakable broke, or chamor b'kelim, or if a donkey and its utensils, which are terrible, tear, terrible, okay, fell in, okay, viniskaro, and the, so to speak, the straps and things on the donkey tore, okay, he has to pay for the animal in either case, but the utensils or the straps he's exempt on. Why? And then the Bryce says something really, really weird. Listen to this. This Bryce is really weird. It says, what is that like? La'avno sakino maso. It's the equivalent of his stone or his knife or his pack that he left in the public domain. Now this is crazy. What's written in the Torah for damages? Your objects or your pit? What's written in the Torah? The pit. What's the source? The pit. What's the derived case? Your possessions, your stone or your thing that are like it. How does the Brisa say what? That a pit is just like what? Like his stone or like his pack? The pit's the source. It has to be the opposite. So listen, the Gemara says, this Brisa makes no sense. Continue reading. Adarabba, on the contrary, it should say what's like this, not what is this pit like. It should say what's like this pit. That's what it should say. Ella, okay, Gemara says you're right. So we really have to read, that's what the Brisa is saying. Ella, you have to read the Brisa this way. My dom elazeh, what's like the pit? Avno v'sakino umaso shenicham b'shusarabim beziku. Here, these various possessions that he left in the public domain and they did damage. Lefikach, and therefore, since those things are like a pit, if a guy fell and hetiach it's if a guy, the Brisa continues, then it says, if the guy, we didn't see this part yet, if the guy fell and then he smashed his bottle onto the stone, the owner of the stone has to pay. Now, it's a very strange thing. Think about it for a second. Look, analyze. Reisha, you just told me a minute ago that when the animal falls in, you're exempt on what? On all the utensils. Okay? Okay. Reisha, okay, kasha l'Rav. The beginning is a kasha to Rav because it told me that his stone and his pack and all these things, what? You have to pay for what? You have to pay for the utensils. You have to pay. Pardon me. Is exempt on what? Pardon me. Why? Because it's a kasha to Rav. Why? Because Rav holds what? That only when you abandon your stuff is it like a pit. But when he didn't abandon it, he is obligated on utensils. Nevertheless, the Reisha said what? the Reisha said what? That even though he continued to own it, okay, he was exempt for the utensils. The Seifa and the end part that said what? That when it hit the stone, that the owner of the stone has to pay Kasher Shmuel. That's against Shmuel, who said what? That even when you own it, it has the rule of what, a pit, and still what, and it should be exempt, and yet it said you're obligated. So it don't make any sense. The ratio is against Rav because it says that you don't pay even when you own the obstacle, you don't pay for kalim. And Rav said you do. And the Sefer, which says what, that when you own it, that you do, that you the Sefer that said when you own it, that what, that's it. The owner that says what, that Shmuel says what, that even if you own it, it still has the exemption for kalim, and yet in the Sefer, when he continued owning the stone, and the guy tripped and broke the bottle of the stone, he has to pay for the bottle. Doesn't make any sense. The Gemara says, 1 second. One second. That's what you ask a kasha. You should ask a better kasha. What are you asking Rabbi Shmuel for? The Bryce itself is self-contradictory. Okay, Tikshile Gufa, you should ask the Bryce itself is self-contradictory. Reisha Potter, the Reisha said what? That you're exempt for the utensil. The Sefer Chayev, and the Sefer said you're obligated to the utensil when the bottle broke on the stone. Ella, you're forced to say what? Everybody's got to fix this price. It makes no sense. So Rav Metarates Latami, Rav will fix the price according to his reasoning that when you own it, it's not a pit. Okay, Ushmul Mataris Latami, Shmuel according to his reasoning that when you own it, it is still a pit. Rav Mataris Latami, Rav explains it according to his reasoning. How is it? He says, Bamedvar Mamurim. He says what? He says, when is it what that when is it that his objects are a pit and you're exempt on kalim keshiv kiran? Rav will say that was the ratio was really what, where he abandoned the owner. He did not own them. Avalovkin, and then the Sefer says, but what? But if he did not abandon them, he continued to own them. Lefikach, therefore, what? But if he didn't abandon them, he has to pay. Lefikach, and therefore the end rule is what? If the guy tripped and broke his bottle in the stone, since the stone is owned, okay, chayav is obligated. So for Rav, the ratio was talking where he didn't own the object, and the same time where he did. Shmuel attacks the timing. Shmuel, who doesn't care whether the owner or not, it's a bor, he'll explain also the Bryce and according to his reasoning. Now that you told me that Avda Sakina Maso is really what? It's really a bar, even if he owns it and it's exempt. But you have to know there's a renegade opinion that we haven't learned yet. The Rabbi Yehuda, which we'll learn much later. The Mechayev on this Kelim Bebar, Rabbi Yehuda, which we haven't learned yet. We'll learn much later that he holds that even on utensils. It's not true what we said, and a bar has to pay. So Lafikach, according to that opinion, if he broke his bottle on the stone, you have to pay, because according to that individual opinion. Amra Elazar says, nah, he says, you know what? Lo shanu. Now, this is a very important point. I'm gonna just explain this outside, and then we'll read it inside, and we'll be done. We have later a very important machlokus. I'm gonna make it easy. We mentioned it once before already. What happens if an ox pushes the guy into a bore? An ox pushes an ox into a bore. Okay? Well, who did the damage in the end? The bore, the pit. Who did? But it could have happened. The ox did it. So what happens? Okay, if the ox can't pay, does the pit have to pay or not? That's a machlokas. Well, on the one hand, we can say what the guy who's the pit said, "What for me? The ox pushed your ox. You get the money from the ox. Leave me alone." The other way is to say the guy says, "Listen, I found my ox in your pit." The final analysis says your pit did the thing. So one opinion is what, that if he can't get the money, it's all on the ox. If you can't get money from the ox, the pit pays nothing. The second opinion is no. Whatever you can't get from the ox, you get from the pit. That's the two opinions. We're going to learn that. I'm not going to go more detail. So now, Amar Elazar says, Lo Shanu, when you told me what? That the guy tripped and broke his bottle on the rock, Ellen Niskal Be'eben, Benishof Eben. When does the owner of the stone have to pay? When the guy tripped on the stone and broke the bottle on the stone. So there's no question that the owner of the stone is the one who has to pay. Aval Niskal Bakarka. But what if the guy tripped on the ground, which is publicly owned, Benishof Eben, and then he smashed the bottle on the stone? Potter, then, okay, the owner of the stone is exempt. Come on, whose opinion is that? The low Rabbi Nassan. That's against the opinion of Rabbi Nassan. Of course, Rabbi Nassan was the one who holds that whatever you can't get from the first guy, you get from the second. Since he can't collect from the ground because it's nobody owns it, it's public to public, nobody owns it. He collects everything from what? From the stone. So therefore, what? So it must be when you told me that if he tripped on the ground and fell on the stone, you don't pay. It's against Rabbi Nassan. Rabbi Nassan says Rabbi Nassan would have said if you can't collect from the ground, collect from the stone. So he's against Rabbi Nassan, like the rabbis. Some people said he said the opposite. Amar Belazar said, "Lo tema b'niskal be'evan b'nishu evan." No, don't think that the owner of the stone only has to pay where the guy tripped on the stone and broke the bottle in the stone, smashed it on the stone. Hu de mechayev. That's only the case where he's obligated. Avol niskal b'karka b'nishu be'evan. But if he had tripped on the ground and smashed it on the stone, potter, the owner of the stone is exempt. No, elafilu niskal b'karka. No, even if he tripped on the ground, b'nishu be'evan, and he smashed it on the stone, chayev, the owner of the stone has to pay. Come on. Who's that like? Rabbi Nassan. That's like Rabbi Nassan. If I can't collect from the first guy, I collect from the second. You can't collect from the ground. You collect from the stone or a bosai. We'll call that a daf. Have a wonderful day. Yes. Stone is the pit. I have a kasha. I have a kasha. Why are the pits so big in avocados? Who needs such a big pit? It's too big. That's a good one. So, but then, but then you have to explain all the other fruits in the world. Why is what? Why is the? Oh, right. Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah. Yeah,